Ashe, ashe, ashe. Peace, peace, peace to the family. Thank you again for tuning in. This is Aurora Divine. I'm actually coming live because there was this frequency and vibe that I've been on, and it actually I've been on it for a little bit, but needless to say, this frequency that I've been on has been leading me um to, of course, deeper aspects of myself that maybe I have never really looked into on such a micro scale. And with that being said, my last live that I did, it was to introduce my written, these transmissions that I received. And I received those transmissions on the 11th. And, I actually received quite a few transmissions, but I'm not going to go into those transmissions. The one specific area or energy that I keep finding myself going back to is alchemy, right? And I'm starting to realize why, because not to mention it's like our natural process to elevate our consciousness through alchemy, but it's also like a reflection of what's currently being worked on. And, you know, um, within me, outside of me, all around me, um, but it started leading me into something deeper than that, and that was why why I bond with certain people. And I started like, because I have this real, like, um how could I say, like, I have this vision of micro to macro, right? And I always have this vision of micro to macro. So this okay, the better way for me to explain it is like, I am that person that wants to know how things work, how things like naturally just work, right? So I'm pretty sure that has a lot to do with physics, and I am a big nerd, so go figure. Um, but I do this because I already know that this is a reflection. If something starts at a like at a micro level, it's only a matter of time till it reflects the macro, becomes the macro. It becomes the macro. And it's really funny, right? Because when I say that, like, and I've actually had this scene come to me like in my mind's eye before, but there was something that I was having a conversation about with my dad, and very inquisitive man, very very smart, has a lot of light. He just sees things differently the way I do, so like we naturally conversate about everything. And whatever conversation we were having, I was telling him like it's like ripples, right? It's like what one thing ripples out into the universe. So like words, energy, period, right? Um, but that's what it is. It's energy. So it starts it's like it starts within, and as you like release it, or it comes out, I guess release, right? Um, it ripples, but it still started, the ripple started within because it generated so much for it to have to come out. And so that's another way of like kind of like how I was seeing this little vision in my head. And it was like that vision from Pocahontas. And it was Grandmother Willow, and she's showing Pocahontas like how life works, right? Something starts off small and it just keeps going. And she's talking about the rings, and I don't remember per se exactly what like she says, but what she says made so much sense like back then to me. And it's still something that I carry with me, obviously, right? But I also know that the things that stand out to me is because it's my divine nature that these certain things stand out to me. It's like the truth, it's like your divine intuition knows, what is relevant to you and what isn't. And that's the reason that my channel is actually called Divine Intuition, because my intuition is so strong, is so like divinely guided, that everything in my life that I have ever done, everything that in my life, as well as experience that I have ever gone through, was because I was supposed to go through them. I was supposed to go through them to get here. And that creates different ripple effects in you, right? Imagine if like these ripples start to kind of crash. It's too much ripples, too much rippling effect, right? Like I've had that happen internally. I've had these um these waves crashing because there's so much different like things going on within, but naturally we're all doing this naturally. We're all triggering ourselves, right? Like there has to be something that triggers the ripples, and it was Grandmother Willow's like leaves, it was her vines, right? And my name is Aurora Divine, Divine Intuition Vines, right? But it was her vine. She was the one who placed it in the water. So we have these or how we could say like these moments where we will have to like receive a trigger to have a ripple effect. Something has to come out of that, right? So anyways, some of the things that I've been asking myself, I seem to naturally be very curious about. And with alchemy, with this, and it's funny because I was on this alchemy energy of transformation, and now I'm on this energy of magnetism. And so I know that, like, with these different energies is a progression in alchemy, but it's also a progression in like our spiritual advancement, our spiritual growth, our conscious growth, right? And um, our subconscious awareness. That's another thing. So um, I started asking myself, like, man, like, what is going on with these bonds? And I was just like, what are these bonds if I'm an atom and you're an atom? Like, how do we bond? How do people bond? I really started asking myself these questions like, how do we bond with each other? Like, how does that look like, right? And it's because of obviously a personal experience, because if it ain't, if you're not actually using life to educate yourself like you really should be, and like not even deciphering, but just trying to understand things, in your life, I would highly suggest to start to do so, because it's going to give you a bigger understanding of what's going on within you and around you. And even you can start to kind of like understand the bonds that you have with other people. And this is what I was asking myself. And I found myself really questioning, like, what, like, what is it about people like that are able to create bonds and then just shit on that bond? You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought that bond was meaningful. And it's something that we see all the time, like all the time. And so I had to look a little deeper. I was like, okay, let's just see, right? Because if an atom, atom, is considered ADAM, then shit, we really looking at ourselves wrong right now. We are so consumed with the physical ADAM instead of the micro ATOM. And that's what we like got flipped with. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't even understand like the bonds of an atom. How the hell are we supposed to understand the bonds of human beings? And so this is where my geekiness, my nerdiness started to kind of show itself, of course, because I was really asking myself these questions. It's a real personal question that I'm asking. Like, and then in my last live, I actually mentioned that, like, the bonds that we share, what if I have more electrons than somebody else? And what if the bond only lasts with that other person is because they're actually utilizing my electrons? You feel me? And this was actually something I was very curious about. So, needless to say, like, I definitely, when I received that transmission, I knew that I was really pointing myself and directing myself in a in an illuminated path of understanding, like, what I just asked myself, I just received from myself. You feel me? So when I actually started looking deeper into these bonds, and I only looked into, like, I started looking into more, but that's for another breakdown. I want to really just go by the two that I did find that I thought was like the basics, right? So you have a covalent bond, and then you have a um ionic bond, right? And now, like, one of the transmissions that I had received the other day, which was on the 11th, and this is kind of how, like, I direct myself to find what I'm looking for. Like, I'm directing myself all the time to give myself these answers. Sometimes it's like we just putting like common sense together. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that makes sense because I just said that over here. So one of the transmissions, the first transmission that I had wrote down, and this, I swear, this just came to me: incongruent bonds. And after I wrote everything off my transmissions that were just coming to me, I looked back: incongruent bonds. And I was like, wait a minute, that's really something? Like, that's really, like, that really came to me. Um, so we're gonna get into the definition of incongruent bonds, and I definitely need to charge my phone. I should have done this already, but bear with me. Because these, I have to talk about. And I can't wait to break down the micro to macro version of how I really got to understand what's really going on and how we actually like how we can understand like how I can understand now how we form certain bonds and how we can even see like certain bonds are naturally like covalent. I'm gonna get into that right now. Let me go and get my computer real quick so I can look up these. My second phone died. I'm kind of pissed. Thought I had it on charger. Both these damn things need charging. All right. So that wasn't long. I'm just getting comfortable, fam. All right. So back to what I was saying. When I had received these transmissions, and for anyone who doesn't know what transmissions are, the easiest way to describe transmissions is straight data. Like straight data from source to me. And it's how people like channel light language, right? When I channel, right, these transmissions, it's a channeling of information. It's a channel of light language, and I translate it, or yeah, I translate that into words. So that's the best way, but it's frequency. So somehow I have to translate it for like I can translate frequency already, but it's like to see, you know, to see the word, well, to see the frequency, it's transfer to words. That's the best way. Incongruent bonds. Incongruent bonds. Definition. Okay, fam. So incongruent bonds it was here. Incongruent meaning, that's what I was looking for. So incongruent is not the same, not compatible, or out of place. And that was the first transmission that I had received. So that's very interesting because this sort of reflects like what I was feeling at the time when I was actually receiving these transmissions. So, I started getting deeper and I had to get deeper. This was just like the tip of the iceberg, right? So, these are, that's just one. That's just the it's just basically the definition of incongruent. But obviously, if it's an incongruent bond, they're not compatible, right? Now, ionic bonds. Okay. Fam. What is an ionic bond in simple terms? An ionic bond, also called an electrovalent bond, is a type of linkage formed from the electrostatic attraction between oppositely charged ions in a chemical compound. The atom that loses the electrons becomes a positively charged ion, cation, right? Or cation, while the other one gains them, becomes a negatively charged ion, an anion. All right. Do you recall me just saying how I was thinking, what if you have more electrons than one person and the other one comes and takes your electrons because they're not they're not charged. What does charge mean? Light. That means they don't have much light. These are beings. These are atoms, ATOM, right? ADAMs. Okay. Now, another thing is, right? The atom or atom would definitely represent the depths and widths of your cells. So, if that's the case, then we're going in depth about how we actually create and how we actually like bond with people. The atom that loses the electrons becomes a positively charged ion because it was because it was yeah, it was already it was neutral. Look at this, family. It was neutral. It wasn't positive and it wasn't negative. But you have one that had to come and take from another one. Mind you, right? So here's another thing. Let's say we're talking about carbon. I need to show you guys this. Well, I can't show you, but I am going to tell you. And all of this stuff you can look up yourself. Okay. I implore anyone to look this up themselves because I'm actually reading from my computer. You can hear me typing in my computer. So we're going to do carbon ionic bond. All right. Now, mind you, right? As I'm actually looking into carbon, and what I was led to was 4 electrons come together to create 8. That was another transmission that I had received. And that transmission was specifically about carbon. Carbon literally has 4 electrons. I bet nobody really actually like looked at that. Everyone looks at the atomic number. No one actually started really looking at the electrons, the atom itself, right? But nonetheless, it has 4 electrons. And this, as I started actually like doing more research into carbon, because I'm such a nerd, it's actually because I asked myself a question, so I'm getting that answer through all of this. But I'm learning it at the most micro level possible. And for me, it's like I have to not see the ADAM part of me. That would be more like the physicality part, right? This atom, ATOM, like the actual like micro aspect of us, it would to me be like the inner us. And then the physical aspect of us would be like the Adamic Adam, like the Adam and Eve type thing. So naturally, anything when it comes to anything like within, it tends to like gravitate to. So, we're gonna go back to the fact that it's a four electron ion, and the ionic and covalent bonds. So the ionic bond is when you have an atom taking from another atom. And it was just like I said, like I felt that way, right? Naturally. Um, because that's what I had been questioning myself about. Like, what are these bonds? Like, how do these bonds work? Like how do people bond with each other and then are just able to like repel each other's bonds? Like, so seriously, because when we speak about, oh, we're bonded or oh, we're bonding, do y'all understand what that really means? Y'all are sharing positively, like y'all are sharing electrons. That's what that means. That means y'all are sharing sparks. This is why when people say, um, there was a spark, we had a spark, we had a thing, we had a spark. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about, yo, we had electrons firing back and forth at each other, or we bonded electrons. It's the wildest thing. So, you know, another that would be okay. The ionic bond, as I already had said, ionic bonds require at least one electron donor and one electron acceptor, right? Now, ladies, think about what this means. As atoms ourselves, right? That means we are usually the ones donating our electricity for the masculine, who is the acceptor. Sometimes that goes opposite, but nonetheless, that's what ionic bonds are. Now here comes the covalent bonds. Okay. In contrast, atoms with the same electronegativity share electrons in covalent bonds because neither atom um, it's like preferentially attracts or repels the shared electrons. So they don't prefer to attract or repel. They share the same electrons. Now, we actually and this is the craziest thing because I literally see both of these type of bonds in my life right now. And this is the biggest contrast, right? Because carbon, and let me break this down all the way. Carbon has okay. Carbon has 4 outer electrons, right? Now, every time we talk about an ion, they're always going to talk about the outer shell of the ion, which is where the electrons are, right? So you have the most outer shell electrons, or whatever the case may be. For carbon, it will be 4. Now, if you have a covalent, if you have a covalent bonding experience, this shit is trippy. Let's say I bonded, and this most beautiful bond, but being that we have a carbon base, right? This is why I'm actually using this. Like, this doesn't apply. This applies for everyone, but because we're already going through these transformations and upgrades, like I'm just using this as a reference tool to navigate my life and how I actually can see me bonding with people and what type of bond I have. Basically saying like, did they are am I having an ionic bonding experience where I have to donate one of my electrons so that we can bond together? You feel me? Or are we having a covalent experience or a covalent bonding experience where it's neutral? Like we share, we click, everything is a perfect like um it's perfect. It's like a synergetic type of like bonding experience. You feel me? So introducing covalent bonds, right? Here we go. Um, all right. So covalent bonds actually come from the transfer of electrons. So valence electrons will always be the outer ring of the electrons, right? That's what they're talking about. So ionic bonding is the complete transfer of valence electrons between atoms. Is a type of chemical bond that generates two oppositely charged ions. In ionic bonds, the metal loses electrons to become positively charged. We had already said that. All right, let's keep going. So, my bad. Okay. So there is a rule of 8. Now, I already knew this because if the rule of 8 is applied, and this is real wild because I think about where the hell does this rule of 8 come from, right? Now hear me out. It's called the octet rule. So this is another thing that I'm going to look up real quick. Let me just pull up another one because I definitely have to go back and forth a little. Octet rule definition. You guys, this is all stuff that I actually was just on. Like I was just on this today, yesterday, and I just had to go let go. I actually been on it for a few days, but I had to go live with it because I was just like so amazed. All right. The octet rule is a chemical rule of thumb that reflects the theory that main group elements tend to bond in such a way that each atom has 8 electrons. Hold on. Let me open this up. I thought they were going to give me like the full little, you dig, but they didn't. All right. Okay, in such a way that each atom has 8 electrons in its valence shell, that's the outer shell, giving it the same electronic configuration as a noble gas. Yo, I ain't even get here yet. I can't even get here yet, y'all. Oh my god. All right. See, this is kind of why I didn't want to go through this one. I just wanted like an overall summary. I'm not trying to get too deep without you guys understanding how I even got here. I'm trying to give you guys the basics because this is so deep, yo. All right. Right now, my sisters and I, we have what I would consider a perfect covalent bond between us four. And I already knew that there was an 8 presence because of my okay, because of my ability to see things in a different or in many different perspectives. I'm able to see what others sometimes don't. And when you bring two, four, okay, when you bring four and four electrons and four electrons together, you create eight. So I had already known that there was an eight type of referencing, an eight energy, an eight rule, an octet rule. I already seen this, right? But this eight goes back to time, like it goes back to infinity. Um, it's really deep, you guys. I'm still trying to find a good okay. The octet rule states that atoms gain or lose electrons to attain an outer shell electron configuration nearest that of a noble gas. And now we're cooking with fire. So, a rule stating that atoms lose, okay, hydrogen. Hold on, guys. Hydrogen is excluded. Okay, that's not it. That's not what I wanted. Now, isn't there an association with 8 and Sirius, I think? But however, nonetheless, right? When this 8 octet rule is applied to the atom, it's like it has to generate another 4 electrons so that it can have this covalent bond with the other 4. Now, another thing is that there are 4 different types of covalent bonds, and we ain't even get there yet because I was trying to keep it very simple and very basic so that we can just see, right, the the difference, because there are other bonds, but I'm leading just with these are the first 2 bonds that I seen that I was like directed to. And then those are the first 2 bonds, ionic and congruent, that I was able to realize and see that they're actually playing out in my life right now. And then you have incongruent bonds that don't bond at all. That's 3 types of bonds already. And there's a few more. So out of congruent bonds, there are 4 types of bonds. Obviously, you have single, double, triple, and then you have um the four is it the fourth or the quad covalent bonds? Let me double check on that. So 4 types of covalent bonds. Interesting how it's 4 types. Sorry, y'all, I'm just looking it up. I really can't stand when you look up something and then when you try and go back to it, they want to give you a whole complete different type of bullshit. That'd be Google for you. Talking about there is no fourth bond. I just read there was a fourth bond. Stop it. Y'all playing with me. And it sucks because if I have both of these phones charged, it's all right. We're doing this in real time anyway, so it's all right. Oh, okay. Now, this is what I had come up to. Could there be a fourth covalent bond? And it is yes. There's technically three covalent bonds, so it would be single, double, and triple, but you can force a fourth covalent bond. Listen to this. This is very interesting. So, by forming four covalent bonds, carbon shares four pairs of electrons, thus filling its outer energy level and achieving stability. Yeah. All right, let me get to this fourth bond. This fourth bond was actually really interesting. And it was saying, jeez, you hear that mess outside? Chicago be so loud. It sounds like dogs going at it outside. Or incongruent bonds going on outside. Yo, I'm a nerd. Leave me alone. Um, all right. Another thing was while I'm looking for this other fourth bond, I found it right before I decided to go live because I thought I was gonna be able to find it again. Um, so do we know that the first form, the first covalent bond is the okay, hold on. Single covalent bond. Covalent carbon bond. I have to show y'all, I have to explain why I'm looking up carbon bond, right? Because the single covalent bond, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry, four single covalent bonds. Here we go. Four single covalent bonds of like four single covalent carbon bonds, sorry, four single covalent bonds from carbon. When you actually look at it, it looks like a pyramid, but it takes the form of a tetrahedron. And if I'm not mistaken, the tetrahedron is literally the platonic solid for fire. Now, if y'all understand what that means, fire is also light. This is like, this, when I seen that, I was just like floored. And the one thing that I remembered was one, like, and it just played in my head because I had just seen that like recently, and I was just like, wow, this is so deep. Like, now I understand why I started, doing this research. And there was a point where, or there was actually a video where Jim Carrey went live on like national television, and he was talking about the tetrahedrons, how there's just all of these little tetrahedrons flying around all around us, and people thought that he was just talking, funny or code, which he definitely was, but Now I understand why he was saying that. So, if that's the case, wouldn't that be how we keep up this illusion? Because if everything is made out of carbon, let's think about this shit. And we have all of these covalent bonds forming around carbon, and it creates a tetrahedron. And a tetrahedron is known to like be the symbolism of light or fire, and fire is light, and light can be refracted, and light can be, reflected. I think we're hitting some key gems here. I think I'm definitely like tapping into something that definitely need to like start looking more into, because I like to know how things work. Isn't that kind of like what physics is? The law of all things and how they work. So, and this is just me naturally tapping in, tuning in, dialing in, being tuned in. But that's about it, y'all. I mean, I had a great time doing this, and I definitely want to have more of my my setup a little better, so that it's a little more organized. But this is chaos magic, so go figure, because it is. And I would know about the platonic solids because I'm like I was heavily on it, and the meanings. And once I seen tetrahedron, I'm fire. So, you know, once I seen tetrahedron and that was related to fire, I already knew what was going on. I was like, oh, that's what Jim Carrey was talking about. He's talking about the illusion. The illusion. And it's crazy, right? Because what is really about is bonds. It's really wild. But anyways, I implore anyone to go ahead and look up you know, the stuff that I was talking about today. You can look up incongruent, because incongruent bonds was a transmission I received. So you might not find it, you might, but if you look up incongruent, it's the same thing. It does not go together, right? So, like, something that does not bond. You can look that up. You can look up ionic bonds and covalent bonds. And I'll definitely get my research going. Well, I'll definitely be more prepared next time to tap into the fourth covalent bond, because it's more like a force, like a forcing of a bond. And then what happens is like there's an orbit of an atom or a molecule or something. It's something with an orbit. And I was just like, wow, this is really deep, because now something has to orbit in order to keep that bond. Am I seeing something like a solar system here? You feel me? Yo, I'm so serious when I say like this micro to macro vision that I have is really amazing, because I get to share it as well. And it's something that I just wanted to come and felt very strongly, like spirit was like, no, you're gonna get your ass up here today and you're gonna say what you gotta say, because you're not the only one feeling this magnetism. And that's where I want to leave it. So, love y'all. Thank you for letting me channel my inner nerd to all of you. And I hope y'all learned something because I'm still learning. So I will be coming on here to do more of these builds because it definitely is a build. So until next time, y'all, thank you again for tuning in. This is Aurora Divine, letting it all shine today. I'm out. Love y'all. Peace.